What is up, Wicked Turtle Nation? We just wanted to let you guys know that Wicked Turtle Network has decided to join the Raise Rebellion as brand ambassadors for Raise Energy Drink. Raise Energy gives you fresh, and that stands for focus, recovery, energy, stamina, and hydration. With zero sugar, absolutely no crash, electrolytes, and BCAA aminos. I encourage everyone listening or watching right now to raise up and join the Raise Rebellion yourself by going to your local GNC, vitamin shop, or even online at repsports.com. And order yourself some Raise Energy drinks or other athletic supplements in bulk. And when checking out, use the order code WICKEDTURTLE for a 15% discount. The website and order code will be in the description of this cast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Duke's Dive. On this episode, we're going to cover 20 years of Impact. You heard that right. This is the long-awaited Impact episode. Since I told you guys that we're going to be doing episodical content now that Coach's child is on board, as we'll say. Congratulations, Coach. Congratulations on your son. That's awesome. So cool. But I digress. This is a big episode. This is the Impact Wrestling episode that I've been teasing for quite some time and researching even longer. So there's going to be a lot of Impact Wrestling talk. I'm going to cover their Impact Premium Insider versus their Impact Plus. I have a call in from El Marco Mysterioso, so it's going to be a really good episode. All around Impact Wrestling, TNA Wrestling. But before I get into that, I want to talk about professional wrestling at the Lycoming County Fair. Rope to Rope Entertainment is bringing professional wrestling back to the Lycoming County Fair for the first time in decades. Yep, wrestling is coming back to the Lycoming County Fair this July 18th at 6 p.m. Front row is $30. $25 for second and third row, and $10 for grandstand and bleachers. You're going to see matches like the Open Road Hellboys versus Robbie Vegas and Ian Quick. You're going to see Joey P versus Tony Toxic. You're going to see Squid Sterling versus Jason Furious. So get on out there to the Lycoming County Fair this Monday, July the 18th at 6 p.m. And our special guest for the evening is Tito Santana. Arriba! So, like I said, come on down to the Lycoming County Fair this Monday and enjoy a night of great entertainment and a night of awesome wrestling. So let's go ahead and get right on into the homework of things, the Impact Wrestling history. Impact Wrestling, formerly known as NWA Total Non-Stop Action in association with NWA National Wrestling Alliance, and then ultimately known to be just TNA Total Non-Stop Action, was founded by Jerry and Jeff Jarrett in 2002. Despite officially parting ways with NWA in 2004, TNA would continue using their heavyweight titles and their tag team titles until creating their own in 2007. This was because TNA's agreement with NWA would come to an end. In 2014, Jeff Jarrett would go on to create his own promotion, GFW Global Force Wrestling, and in 2015, Billy Corgan would join the team as a senior producer of creative and talent relation, and then he would eventually become president in late 2017 when Dixie Carter stepped down. Don Callis and Scott D'Amore would become executive vice presidents in 2018 when Impact Wrestling was purchased by Axis, where it currently airs every Thursday at 8 p.m. Impact Wrestling has created special matches like Lethal Lockdown, Monsters Ball, the Reverse Battle Royal, and Barbed Wire Massacre, amongst more, to set themselves aside from the rest of the wrestling world. And they also controversially used a 6-sided wrestling ring for a time. Impact Wrestling offers a premium service where they offer their massive back catalog in addition to their weekly programs and monthly live premium events at around $8. Impact Wrestling still does hold monthly pay-per-views that are not included with the Impact Plus streaming service, but they can be usually found on Fight TV around like $40. Impact Wrestling also offers a paid subscription through their YouTube channel. This option gives you access to Impact Wrestling's episodical, a seemingly slightly smaller library than what's offered through Impact Plus. The premium live event and special, then you also get premium live events and special chat emoticons. The monthly pay-per-view events are still not included with Impact's paid YouTube subscription, but monthly premium events do come through on the Impact Insiders Ultimate. And at the end of the episode here, I'm going to cover a little bit of Impact and Ultimate Insider versus Impact Plus. Moving on, we're going to talk about the X Division. This is my favorite division in Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling has a very special and prestigious division called the X Division. Impact Wrestling's X Division is described as wrestling reinvented, taking traditional wrestling and incorporating it with the cruiserweight and lucha-style libre wrestling styles. A long-standing motto within the X Division was that it's not about weight limits, it's about no limits, even if at one point they would indeed honor a weight limit for a period. The championship title would debut June 19, 2002, and AJ Styles would defeat Low-Ki, Jerry Lynn, and Jorge Estrada in a four-way double elimination match to become the inaugural X Division champion. He would then go on to become a six-time champion, known as the NWA X Championship, and then the NWA TNA X Championship, the NWA-TNA X Division Championship, the TNA X Division Championship, and then finally known as what we know it today, the Impact X Division Championship. Chris Sabin had the most reigns at 8 reigns. Austin Aries holds the longest reign at over 300 days. Eric Young holds the shortest reign at less than a day, with a few others with like Rockstar Spud. And the oldest champion at 41 years old was Kurt Angle, and the youngest at 21 was the Amazing Red. Abyss was the heaviest, and Rockstar Spud was the lightest. The X Division is also known for several special attraction matches that were created to showcase the special roster that is the X Division. Arguably the most well-known of the special attraction matches would be the Ultimate X match. This match features a large red X being suspended over the ring with cables fashioned in an X pattern, much like a Money in the Bank match, with like 6 competitors or so competing to be the first to grab and remove the X, usually receiving a number 1 contendership opportunity. Another is the Steel Asylum match. It would debut in 2008 and feature a round shape cage or dome over the ring, and competitors fight to be the first to escape, also usually garnering themselves a title shot. The X Escape match, however, would be similar. However, 6 competitors fight, and you must get down to the final 2 athletes using pinfall or submission, and then the final 2 race to be the first to escape the cage. Speedball Mike Bailey is currently the X Division champion. Now moving on to the Heavyweight Championship. The Impact Wrestling Heavyweight Championship was debuted May 14, 2007. This was because the agreement with NWA had ended and Impact wanted to move away from using their NWA Heavyweight Championship. Kurt Angle would become the inaugural champion in a series of tapings. Kurt would hold their title a record amount of times at 6 title reigns. Bobby Roode would hold the longest reign at 255 days, and Josh Alexander the shortest at 3 minutes. At 52 years old, Sting was the oldest champion, and at 24 years old, Tessa Blanchett is the youngest champion, also the first female champion. Moose was the heaviest holder, and Tessa the lightest. The current TNA Heavyweight Champion is Josh Alexander. Now let's talk about the tag team titles. The TNA tag team titles debuted May 14th, 2007, and in 3 days, Team 3D, Bully Ray, and Devon would go on to become the first ever champions. The North are the longest TNA champion holders at 380 days, and the shortest at less than a day would be Eric Young and Kaz. Beer Money and the Wolves are tied at most reigns at 5 apiece. 3 men have held the tag team titles alone, being Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, and Matt Morgan. There have been 57 reigns shared between 60 wrestlers and 39 teams, and the current champions are the Good Brothers. Now let's talk about the Knockout Championship. Brought into the wrestling world October 14th, 2007, Gail Kim would go on to become the first champion, winning a 10 knockout gauntlet. She would also have the most reigns at 7 title reigns. At 42, Mickie James is the oldest champion, and at record 22, Taylor Wilde would be the youngest. Awesome Kong was the heaviest, and Miss Tessmacher was the lightest. Jordynne Grace is the current champion. Then we have the Impact Knockout World Tag Team Championships. They were created in 2009. The first champs were Sarita and Taylor Wilde. Fire and Flavor have the most reigns at 3. The longest reign would be Eric Young and ODB at 478 days. Jordynne Grace and Rachel Elling would be the shortest at 20 days. Now, before I go on to talk about my history with Impact Wrestling, which isn't very much before the year like 2018, let me give you some history through El Marco Mysterioso in the form of a call-in.
What's up, guys? El Marco of Smart Mark Alley here. I was asked by the Duke to give a history or memories that I have with TNA Impact. I started watching TNA, well, I would say more weekly, between 2003 2004. And my memories, I tend to remember more of, obviously the 6-sided ring, but more of the, silly stuff. Shark Boy, Curry Man, and then some of the, oddball stuff, like Dustin Rhodes' Black Rain, Abyss, the Monsters Ball match with James Mitchell. Because those were always, I think, one of my favorite matches is Raven and Daphne against Abyss and the one blonde whose name I can't recall right now off the top of my head, but. And then there was, Roxy Laveau, woman who had to shave her head on TV, and I'm pretty sure she did it before Molly Holly. I could be wrong. And of course, I remember, some of the classic X Division matches. Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, and then Xavier Woods when he was there as Apollo Crews. I watched Jeff Jarrett in his, early TNA run. And you had, I'm trying to remember everybody. When I started, it was right towards the end of the tag team America's Most Wanted with Chris Harris and James Storm. And in terms of the heavyweights, before, not counting the, vets or legends that would eventually come in. I'd say that James Storm is probably my favorite TNA original, because I always started enjoying watching him, and then when he started his singles run, I became more of a fan of it.
Thank you for that, El Marco. That was perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. And a lot of the stuff that you covered is things that we're going to be talking about in just a little bit when I cover the matches. Black Rain, we're talking Relic, we're talking Father Mitchell, we're talking Abyss, we're talking all that crazy stuff, all the fun stuff, all the funny stuff, and everything in between. So, El Marco Mysterioso, thank you for the call in, my friend. Thank you. Now, I am going to talk about my history. I didn't watch a lot of Impact Wrestling. I knew about it. I knew more of the game that came out on game consoles. Aside from having a really weird control scheme, was a really honestly good wrestling game. I knew about their roster only because of the ex-WWE guys, but I didn't watch them on a weekly basis until probably the Broken Matt Hardy stuff, and I started getting into that with Broken Matt and Brother Nero and the Hardy Compound, or the Broken Hardy Compound at that time, and all that, like the mystique around what they were doing on the indies at that point in time. That was really cool to me. Excuse me. Then in 2019, as we'll cover on the matches segment of the podcast, Ace Austin debuted, and I started watching weekly. And then when the pandemic hit, I was one of those people. I was like, I know that Impact Wrestling is known for these cinematic type matches, so I think that they will really flourish without having a crowd. I think they'll use that to their advantage. And boy, did they ever. Right around 2020 is when I really became a fan of watching around every time. And then Kenny Omega came back came in with AEW, and the AEW Impact Wrestling partnership happened, and I was fully invested around that time, and I started watching back, and boy, have they been doing the Forbidden Door stuff way before, like way in 2007, way 2005, like early 2000s. So it was just really cool to go back and see matches that I would consider right now dream matches. Like, they've already happened way back when Impact was TNA back in the early 2000s. So that's my little bit of history with Impact, and I've been doing a lot of, like I said, research with Impact Premium Plus and Impact Plus Premium and all these in between. Impact Plus and Impact Insiders Premium, the more higher expensive tier of the YouTube channels. My problem with Impact Plus is the app. Now, I could go on there through my Xbox and watch it on the web browser, but they really need a better dedicated Impact Plus app that's available on all platforms, because they do have a much more vast library of back catalog through Impact Plus, as opposed to the alternative on as opposed to the alternative through YouTube. But YouTube has a better suited app, and a better payment scheme as well. I can pay through the same program as I pay through my YouTube Premium, so that works for me. I don't have to go anywhere else. I'd use that as a side subscription service through my YouTube. They do have a lot of free catalog and a lot of good back Plus catalog as well, which I'm going to cover. A lot of the stuff that I cover does come from the paid Plus side of Impact Premium Insiders on YouTube. Which can be found on that. So that's what I'm going to be talking about a lot about. For me, I still think it's better to use the Impact Premium Insiders option on YouTube, just because I think Google and YouTube are an easier way to work with. I think they've been around a lot longer, and their apps are just better made. This is coming from Dum Dum Dugan himself. Dum Dum Doo 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 Doo. So anyway, let me go ahead and get into the matches. So let's run down the matches and most memorable moments I have listed over the last 20 years. Now, of course, I'm going to miss a lot of stuff, and I'm not going to go over these events that have happened years ago in depth or anything. I'm just going to cover the matches that I liked out of those events. Now, I'm definitely not saying that they are the only matches that happened or the only ones worth watching. Definitely go back and watch these whole events, which definitely, like I said, can be found on YouTube through the Impact Premium Insiders option, which also gets you access to their weekly streaming. The higher end tier of the YouTube, not the lower end, but the higher end of the YouTube gives you access to their weekly television as well. So that's also a very good option if you don't have a cable subscriber. You can go right through there and watch them every Thursday night at 8:30 with no commercial breaks. So I really think that's awesome. So if you don't have a television subscriber, that's an awesome option. HD, no commercials. You can't beat that. So, yeah, let's start right here. In 2005, TNA Unbreakable. We had Austin Aries defeating Roderick Strong. We had the Naturals, who were Andy Douglas and Chase Stevens, taking on and defeating Alex Shelley, John Candido, and America's Most Wanted, Chris Harris and James Storm, with Team Canada, which was A1 and Eric Young. Then for the X Division, we had AJ Styles taking on and defeating Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe. And we'll move on to Bound for Glory 2005. We had Sanjay Dutt defeating Alex Shelley, Austin Aries, and Roderick Strong. We had P.D. Williams in the X Division taking on and defeating Chris Sabin and Matt Bentley to become the Ultimate X #1 contender. For the next one, we have America's Most Wanted, James Storm and Chris Harris taking on and defeating the Naturals, Andy Douglas and Chase Stevens. We had Rhino taking on and defeating Abyss, Jeff Hardy and Sabu in the Monsters Ball. Then for the X Division Championship title, we had AJ Styles taking on and defeating Christopher Daniels in an awesome 30-minute Iron Man match. Then we had Genesis 2006. We had the Naturals, Chase Stevens and Andy Douglas, taking on and defeating Sanjay Dutt and Jay Lethal. For the X Division Championship, we had Chris Sabin taking on and losing to Christopher Daniels. We had Christian Cage defeating AJ Styles. Then we had Latin American Exchange, Homicide and Hernandez versus America's Most Wanted, James Storm and Chris Harris, and LAX would take the win on that one. We move on to Turning Point 2006. Samoa Joe would defeat Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle would defeat Samoa Joe. Then in Bound for Glory 2007, the Motor City Machine Guns, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley would take on Joey Matthews and Johnny Swinger. For the X Division Championship, Jay Lethal would take on and defeat Christopher Daniels. Then Samoa Joe would go on to defeat Christian Cage. Sting would defeat Kurt Angle. And then we'll move on to Lockdown 2008. Jay Lethal would defeat Consequences Creed, Curryman, Johnny Devine, Shark Boy, Sanjay Dutt, LAX, Motor City Machine Guns, P.D. Williams and Scott Steiner, Jimmy Raven, Lance Hoyt. Samoa Joe would defeat Kurt Angle in Lockdown 2008. Kaz and Super Eric would defeat Black Rain and Relic. Now let's move on to Destination X 2011. We had Eric Young and Shark Boy taking on and defeating Generation Me, which are the Young Bucks. We had Alex Shelley in the X Division taking on and defeating the Amazing Red, Robbie E, Shannon Moore to become the #1 X contender. Then we had RVD taking on and defeating Jerry Lynn. For the X Division, we had Austin Aries taking on and defeating Jack Evans, Low Key, and Zema Ion. Then we had Brian Kendrick defeating Abyss for the title. Then AJ Styles would take on and defeat Christopher Daniels. Then Hardcore Justice 2011, we had Brian Kendrick taking on and defeating Alex Shelley and Austin Aries. Then we had Mickey James taking on and losing to Winter. We had Kurt Angle defeating Sting, and Madison Rayne versus Kurt Angle defeated Sting. Madison Rayne would defeat Miss Tessmacher. Then for the X Division, we had Zema Ion taking on and defeating Kenny King. AJ Styles would take on and defeat Christopher Daniels, Kurt Angle, and Samoa Joe. Then February 18th, 2018 was Barbed Wire Massacre 3. LAX would take on and defeat OVE. March 18th, 2018. I think I might have said Ace Austin debuted in 2019 earlier. This is a mistake. Ace Austin debuts in March 8th, 2018, takes on and defeats Jake Atlas. Then in Rebellion 2019, Ace Austin would take on and defeat Petey Williams, Jake Chris, Cousin Jake, Eddie Edwards, and Aiden Prince to become the X Division, the first time X Division champion. That would be his first run. Taya Valkyrie would take on and defeat Jordy and Grace. Rich Swann would take on and defeat Sami Callihan. Then we got Bound for Glory 2019. Taya Valkyrie would take on and defeat Tennille Dashwood. Ace Austin would take on and defeat AC Romero, Daga, Jake Christ, and Tessa Blanchard. Brian Cage would take on and defeat Sami Callihan. Next up, we have Slammiversary 2020. Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin would take on and defeat the Rascals, Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz. Kylie Ray would win a #1 contendership. The North, Josh Alexander and Ethan Page would take on and defeat Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan. Deonna Purrazzo would take on and defeat Jordan Grace. Eddie Edwards would take on and defeat Ace Austin, Trey Miguel, Eric Young, and Rich Swann. Then we have Slammiversary 2021. For the X Division Championship, we'd have Josh Alexander taking on and defeating, Chris Sabin taking on and defeating Josh Alexander, Ace Austin, Chris Bay, Petey Williams, Rohit Raju, Trey Miguel, and Moose. Then Deonna Purrazzo would take on and defeat Thunder Rosa. Kenny Omega would take on and defeat Sami Callihan. Then we have Slammiversary 2022. We're finally in this year, ladies and gentlemen. If you had stuck around this long, thank you for sticking around. Slammiversary 2022, we had to have Brian Myers taking on and defeating Rich Swann for the Internet Championship title. We had Shark Boy winning the Reverse Battle Royal. We had Speedball winning the Ultimate X Championship and the X Division Championship by defeating Kenny King, Ace Austin, Andrew Everett, Trey Miguel, and Alex Zane. We had Sami Callihan defeating Moose. We had the Good Brothers defeating the Briscoe Brothers. We have Frankie Kazarian, the Motor City Machine Guns, and Nick Aldis defeating Honor No More. Jordan Grace defeating Maya Yim, Chelsea Green, Deonna Purrazzo, and Tasha Steeles to become the Knockouts champion. Josh Alexander would take on and defeat Eric Young to retain the Impact Heavyweight Championship. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Against All Odds 2022. Johnny Swinger and Zyke Dice defeating Raj Singh and Shira. Black Taurus with Crazy Steel take on and defeat Laredo Kid. Brian Myers took on and defeated Rich Swann to keep on to that Internet Championship media title. Motor City Machine Guns take on and defeat Ace Austin and Chris Bay, the Bullet Club. Chelsea Green and Deanna Peraza would defeat Maya Yim and Mickey James. Mike Bailey would defeat Trey Miguel to retain the X Division Championship. Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie would defeat Tennille Dashwood and Madison Rain to retain the Impact Knockout Tag Team Championship. Heath and America's Most Wanted, the Good Brothers would defeat Honor No More. Moose would defeat Sami Callihan in a Clockwork Funhouse match. Jordynne Grace would defeat Tasha Steelz to retain the Impact Knockouts championship, and Josh Alexander would defeat Joe Doring to retain the Impact Heavyweight Championship title. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Impact 20 anniversary episode. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a long time coming, like I said. A lot of research went into that one. A shorter one than usual, a different one than our usual weekly wrestling intake. Hope you liked it. Hope you stuck through with it. If you didn't like it, I don't know, let me know. We'll have to put it in the complaint box or something. We'll work on it. So, like I said, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Follow all things Wicked Turtle. Go buy some Raise Energy drinks. Use the code Wicked Turtle at the checkout. Check out all things Wicked, man. Go on all our links. You can go on Linktree, link.tr/EE or whatever the heck that is. Linktree, Wicked Turtle. It's all our social links are on there. It's going to be in the description of this cast along with all my Linktree stuff. And also, he was not on the cast, but we're going to throw linkity-dinky-doo-dah. We're going to throw all of the coach's media on there because he's a good guy. He is the coach. He's the dive instructor. And ladies and gentlemen, that has been the Impact Wrestling episode of the Duke's Dive. Thank you for listening.